But when we talk about Beautiful Boy, Felix Van Groningen. I knew I was not going to really pronounce that correctly, so I wanted to slow it down a little bit. But you got Timothy Chalamet. I mean, we saw him in Lady Bird. We saw him in Call Me by Your Name, which if you want to check that out, we reviewed both of those. Nostalgia Best of, and also had their own breakouts. So check that out on YouTube. Got Chalamet, height of his powers. People are comparing him to some of the best actors of all time. Young Brando, young Heath Ledger. You got Steve Carell, who is, I think taking another step into dramatic acting and pretty much acing almost every single role he's had. He got nominated for the Foxcatcher 2 years ago.
Foxcatcher, Big Short are the two standouts for him.
When was the last time he did a funny movie? I can't even. Funny TV show. It's been a while. Been a minute.
Superman 2? No, something since then, right?
But basically, you got these two guys who have been crushing it, and I think they both give great performances. So why didn't I think this movie was as good as it could have been?
Are you asking me?
I'm sitting here. I'm trying to figure it out, and I think that there's some directorial choices that didn't make a lot of sense to me. I think that there's some things with the script that didn't make a lot of sense to me. But I think what I'm mostly left with this movie, maybe this is where we can take off the conversation, was this movie almost too realistic of a look at substance abuse to actually be like a really, really great movie.
It is dark. It is morbid.
It's a tough watch at points.
At times, for sure. It doesn't pull its punches. Doesn't move the camera away. Showing injections, showing track marks. Tough conversations to watch happen. All that. I think my biggest issue with the movie is actually Carell. I didn't like Carell in this movie. I thought with a different serious actor, I think it's better. And I think that's probably because in my opinion, Carell, it's like it almost looks like he's trying too hard when he's doing something super serious like this.
Mm-hmm.
As a controlling parent, I don't know, it just wasn't totally vibing with me. I didn't think it was bad by any means, but I just think with a slightly different choice, I think it could have been more effective. So that would be my choice. I didn't have a problem with the direction per se. I did start to notice that it was a lot of close-up frames,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of like really squaring in on headshots and whatnot. But, I thought the narrative also, because, it's based off of two memoirs, right?
By Nick Sheff and David Sheff.
Sheff, the dad, Beautiful Boy. And then Nick Sheff also wrote his own memoir called Tweak. And it's based off both of those. But the story inherently is based off of David, based on the dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if it was a different actor, it probably could have been carried well, because, at the end of the day, Chalamet is a supporting actor in this film. He's not the lead. So that would kind of be where I think a little missed for me. But overall, I thought it was still really powerful, for all those obvious reasons. And again, because it doesn't pull its punches, but also because Chalamet fucking acts the shit out of this movie. He's tremendous.
What were some scenes where you felt like Carell really missed? Like, is there any that come to mind where you were like, that wasn't great?
Yeah, I think when he's like chasing him out the house a few times,
Mm-hmm.
like after him and just getting like really mad, and it's just like, I just don't know if I really feel like you're mad, right? The Chalamet would believe anything he does because he's so talented. Charisma, charm, whatever he has to do, he is that role, right?
Mm-hmm.
Carell in a serious role isn't quite like that, and this is something it's really serious, it's really heavy, and for being a neurotic character, I don't know, it just seemed like maybe I wouldn't say he's overacting, but it just seemed like he felt like he was trying too hard. So
yeah,
that was my take on him.
It's interesting. I remember there was a scene where Maura Tierney is talking to him as he's like packing a bag to go look for Nick. It's near the second half of the movie, and
in New York.
And he got like really mad, like out of nowhere. It felt like it really elevated quickly. And that was probably one of maybe like 2 or 3 times I was kind of like, I don't know if that was that great. Like you said, Chalamet, I thought was pretty much excellent, and I can't really think of too many scenes where I left thinking like, man, Chalamet missed there, because I don't even know if there were any in the movie, honestly. Um, Talking about like the direction and the script, I thought the timeline jumping, and especially in the beginning, was a little like threw me off a lot. You know, they show Nick right in the throes of substance use, and then they say 1 year earlier, and they show a very short scene from 1 year earlier, and then it goes back to him when he's like 13 years old, jumping back, and then I was like, what are we watching here? That was a little confusing, and some of the flashbacks were a little bit, I thought like too spliced in at points where it was a little confusing.
I honestly could have done without almost all the flashbacks. You know, like we got it. We got the sentimentality aspect to it, right? We understand like that relationship already.
Mhm.
It's like I feel like they just made it clear in Act One, you know, what
Right.
happened, and the extra flashbacks later on throughout the movie didn't add anything to it. It just seemed like they could have trimmed those around, used different scenes, something like that. So yeah, that was an interesting choice.
Yeah, and I guess like the follow up to that, and kind of where I was coming in with, is this too realistic of a look? And it doesn't pull any punches. There's, I mean, there's a scene where someone, that young girl is revived from an overdose, and you actually see him like giving CPR to her, and she like comes back to life. It actually shows them injecting the meth into their veins. It's very, I mean, it's explicit for the subject. Is you never really get that moment where Nick and his dad have that like reckoning, where they talk about what it is about Nick's relationship with his dad and with his family that contributes so much emotionally to his substance use. And obviously something that I think they do really well in this is they explain the physiological effects of addiction, and how at a certain point the person loses a lot of control over their own bodily sensations to addiction. But I do think I was waiting for that moment where they sat down, they had that like face to face. I guess the diner scene is the closest they could have come.
That's my favorite.
It's the best scene in the movie, I think, by far. But they never really talked about what it was about the family, and I really just wanted that. That also might be the therapist side of me, like have some resolution to this, like. But
Yeah,
it felt too real at that point.
yeah, it's interesting too because they're in what? They're in like Marin County, you know, north of the Bay Area.
Right.
Very affluent family by all accounts, which also made me think this is taking place in what, the early 2000s, you know,
Yeah.
like pre-smartphone era. They have normal phones.
That razor.
So David's second wife is an artist, a painter,
Mhm.
and is a freelance journalist working for, or writer, whatever, working for Rolling Stone and other magazines. And they're in that fucking huge ass house. I was like, is that accurate? So yeah, when you're looking at an artist and a writer living in a house like that, something I thought of. Didn't break the movie or anything for me, but because they, it was again some kind of almost obvious, almost tropey. It's like, and it's a real story. Affluent family, everything going for the kid, still finds his way, has issues, goes down that path. Almost stereotypical in a sense, but yeah, it ends rather abruptly. I'd actually be curious to see how the memoirs go, because I assume the flashbacks are rooted in David's memoir, right? That must be a big part of that. But they basically end the movie with text on the screen, but they give you the there that he is
in recovery, and he's been sober for 8 years, something like that.
Right. But I think the crux of the movie, where the movie really works, is that first diner scene where I think that's Chalamet's reel for the award right there. Haunting as fuck. He's so good.
Yeah.
But really, just the whole sequences around his two relapses are tremendous and incredibly hard to watch. Just feel it happening, and it's really difficult. And also, I think what was really haunting for me was when he discovers his notebook. Book, and he's seeing these like dark cartoons and reading what he says when he's really high, and it was some tough stuff. And I think all of those moments really work. And again, the movie would not ultimately be successful without Chalamet's performance, but I think his performance around those tenets of the movie, it was tough to watch, but absolutely worth it.
Yeah, and the thing is, this is 65% Rotten Tomatoes, but I don't think the movie is that bad. I mean, if I had to give it a rating scale of 1 to 100, I'd probably put it like a 75 to 80. And
Yeah.
I think mostly it's just Chalamet balling out. And I mean, the other performances are good. Maura Tierney's good. Amy Ryan is good. It was kind of sad to see um, like Steve Carell and Amy Ryan like as divorced after if anyone that watched The Office, I was kind of sitting there like, oh, Michael and Holly, come on, man. But I think this is the sort of movie that kind of similar to First Man. I probably wouldn't like go back and want to rewatch super quick just because it is so heavy, but it's an achievement in terms of telling a really difficult story and having I think two really good performances and Chalamet being, I mean, a shoe in for at least a nomination in this role.
Oh yeah, I think at this point he's the favorite for best supporting actor. I think right now his chief competition would be Mahershala Ali for Green Book, which is yet to come out. And he's obviously no easy foe. He just won for Moonlight, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this prove. I think a lot of the big takeaway for a lot of people is this proves that Chalamet is not a fluke in any sense. Calling by Name was legit because he is that talented. He is that good, and 22 years old. You know, he's already passed River Phoenix. He's already. I think he's starting to surpass Heath Ledger because he's the thing with Chalamet and Lucas Hedges as well is that they just continue to make amazing choices.
Yeah.
Talented directors, great scripts, and even if they're not leading roles, again, this is Hedges. Boy Race will be Hedges' first leading role this year. You know, you need to be very choosy with their projects. So that's really impressive because you look at other young actors that came up, something like Leonardo DiCaprio. They weren't nearly as selective, back in the '90s. But I think speaking of the critical reception, I think it's interesting. I mean, what 65%? That's effectively 50-50 in terms of it's not consensus,
Yeah.
and I've been reading a lot of the reviews and just interesting to see that they would a lot of half the critics are saying the review is negative, and a lot of the critiques are the same. It's structural things, Carell related, like there's nothing offensive about the movie, so it's just interesting. It's almost being held on a very high pedestal, But I would encourage people to read a lot of the reviews, especially if you like the movie, just to see what that perspective is, because I think a lot of people are eloquent about it, but it is interesting to see that it's, effectively 50-50 the critics.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that this is just an important movie to watch because I do feel like this is a really important topic that a lot of people don't really understand. And it's good to see these sort of stories being made. And I think I would count this as a win for Amazon Studios for sure, because they're going to get at least one nomination out of it. And there will probably be some technical ones as well. So
it's making good money so far relative to the scope of the movie. So
yeah, it's not even in wide release yet, I don't think.
It's in a few hundred theaters as of this weekend.
Yeah.
Doing very well as a per theater average. So you figure it'll play for a little bit, so it'll make some money. Again, obviously, it's not an expensive movie to make.
It's not making that Halloween money though.
That's for sure.
Any last thoughts on Beautiful Boy?
Again, we
see it
for some reason. Still watching, I very recommend the movie.
Yeah.
Very excited for Chalamet's next roles. The King, his Henry V movie, which has our Pattinson, Joel Edgerton, and Ben Mendelsohn in it as well.
It's gonna be a movie for sure.
His role with Greta Gerwig in the Little Women, the 8th Little Women remake, which Saoirse Ronan, Meryl Streep, Emma Roberts, Florence Pugh. So those are his 2 movies next year. So then down the line from that, he's gonna star in Denis Villeneuve's Dune movie, finally getting that made. So, I saw some people saying that, oh, Chalamet's too talented. Let's get him in a Howard Hughes movie, get him in a New Breakfast Club. And it's like, I don't know if anyone's like clamoring for him to switch genres. I think we're all just happy to watch him make these amazing choices,
Yeah, and at this point, can you really like knock his choices? Like the guy knows what he's doing.
And following that vein, doing something bigger in scope, he's still picking Denis Villeneuve to make that movie.
Yeah.
So he continues to just hit dingers. So I'm fucking a huge fan.
Yeah, no, it's Chalamet is can't miss right now. He's on a different plane, and I think Lucas Hedges after his next movie is going to be in the conversation. So, and he's going to be in mid-90s just this coming week.